Hello, welcome to the storytelling space. Yes, so today I was saying we will do no check-ins and I'll explain why in a second. And I'll start with a couple of announcements on the new structure of Renaissance Explorers. And then I'll talk about submission for storytelling pieces, and then we'll go into an exploration mode, which is a mode for meetings or calls or gatherings. And that's when you'll be able to share and you will be able to check in if you want to cheat the system and do it that way. And later, after that exploration mode, which will be one round for all of us, then we'll go into breakout rooms and then we'll come back. So this is the plan for today. Starting with a couple of announcements. Let me share this forum post in case someone hasn't seen it. I posted on the RE forum, I guess it was Monday, perhaps. Yeah, I think it was Monday. I posted something that was a private message that I had sent to the formerly known as RE Core. And in that forum post, I explained that there have been some major changes into how Renaissance Explorers is structured. And we now have a minimum viable structure that is incredibly pleasing and incredibly beautiful, in my opinion, which is comprised of a foundational layer of meta agreements and an organizational structure. And in that, you can all check that out in more detail in that forum post. And in that, the part that is interesting for us here is that we also have 3 different kinds of involvement, let's say, from explorers. So we have orbiting explorers, which is anyone who is following the co-learning journey. So anyone here, myself included, because I'm following the outer session called co-learning journey. So I'm also an orbiting explorer. We have contributing explorers, who are people who will either answer to quests that will be posted by the core explorers or propose the quests on their own. And we have like the core explorers, who are people who are basically doing everything that needs to be done, like crazy maniacs at the moment. And we hope that more people will join the core explorers, so we don't have to be crazy maniacs for that long, and we can share that beauty with all of us, and no one is overwhelmed. And I wanted to talk about that, first of all, just to give a heads up and talk about the changes in RE, and also because the contributing explorers are going to be, if you decide to become a contributing explorer and not only an orbiting explorer, just watching and following the co-learning journey, then you will be answering or proposing contributions and quests, and that ties into the storytelling pieces that we can create and that will be remunerated through the campaign that passed last moon cycle. So for that, I want to mention a couple of things. The most important thing is the storytelling submission guidelines. That is a work in progress by Nikki, but I think she may be able to finish it this week, and it already gives, I'm going to share it in the chat now. It already gives a good idea of what it's going to look like. We're trying to make this these submission guidelines so that they are compatible with the SEEDS library. And I don't think Nikki mentioned the remuneration here, or did she? She did, but without putting specific numbers. I'm going to add those numbers because I think the remuneration will be, it's still under construction, but I think it will be around 1,333 seeds per piece. So that's to give you an idea, but as soon it's a final number decided, I'll put it in the remuneration part in that document. And on top of that, as I had mentioned before in another storytelling session, if you decide to follow also the guidelines for the Seeds Library, you can submit that piece to the Seeds Library and get compensated through the Seeds Library also, which I think it's 500 seeds or 1,000 seeds, but I think 1,000 seeds is just if you're talking about an alliance. So I think it's 500 seeds. I'm not entirely sure, but it's also in the guidelines for the Seeds Library. And basically, I would love to encourage anyone who feels called to submit quests for storytelling or to answer to quests, because I will be asking also, and we will be posting that. Still haven't decided through which platform, but as soon as we do, we will inform you. And the first one, it was yesterday during our other session when we were talking about the minimum viable roadmap. And I asked in the chat, anyone interested in making an infographic out of this? Ogden contacted me right away. So he's the first contributor for our storytelling space. Yeah, I guess that's what I had in terms of announcements. I think I'll stop here and open for questions. I see Mila. You want to bring your question, Mila?
Yeah, so in this new structure, congratulations. The beautiful minimum viable structure that we can experiment and see how it goes. So because we were tasked on a comms doc, how does the comms exploration group and delivery timeline fit into this? What's the process? Do we need to go through the whole process again? And because there was a sense of urgency in our group yesterday when we had a conversation, is there a timeline we need to do this? So basically, if you could give us guidance. So we have a whole host of questions based on the old structure. So now we're in a new structure. So I guess that may or may not apply, but it's also applicable to the conflict resolution, which was supposed to be in the RE exploration group, and the team is in the comms are the same in the conflict. So
yes, thank you for bringing this, Mila. I actually did not put this in my agenda, but that was very much in my mind. And I saw you sent me messages, and I haven't had time to go through them. So I had thought of asking you to bring what happened regarding comms actually today. So could you do that?
Yeah, so I don't know whether it's applicable anymore because I'm not really sure whether we have to then submit quests. Is it how do existing exploration groups fit into this? How does it transition into this new minimum viable structure? That's primarily the first question. We do have a whole host of questions to ask relating to the comms deliverable, but I think the primary question is how do we transition an existing exploration group, whether it's the comms or the conflict resolution, into this new process?
That is a very good question. In my opinion, there is no transition necessary. You don't need to stop anything. You don't need to redo anything. It's all good. The exploration groups are part of the orbiting explorers, except for, I mean, that will depend on how I was going to say except for the person who is actually the one leading it or guiding it, or however we want to call it, the person who's picking up the threads, scheduling the calls, taking notes, posting the the conclusions of the exploration group afterwards. I would say that apart from this person, who to me would be a contributing explorer, they would be they would have a different type of remuneration. For the people who are in the exploration group, to me, that is an orbiting explorer. But that depends on how those exploration groups are set. That depends on, is it really one person doing all of that, or is it done by everyone? I'm having trouble today with words. I don't know if you've noticed. Is it done by everyone or by multiple people? So that would be, I would say, a case-by-case scenario. So does that answer your question?
Yeah. So if we assume that we're going to continue as is, and then we then define within our group whether we're operating explorer and who's going to be the core explorer. We're going to go through 6 weeks transition to become a core explorer. I guess that's a conversation that needs to be agreed with the team. So I have listed a document there with some of the questions that came out from our meeting yesterday, because we really needed to have some clarity, and Melanie and Tina was in there, so please feel free to add anything. And these were kind of the key questions that I summarized from our sharing. And we did a process in there that that was demonstrating how we can have different opinions on a particular focus question without having to go head to head about opinions, but looking at a question for resolving anything or wanting to get brainstorming or ideas, actually by doing a process of inquiry, which is very used in complex system. And you just ask questions after question that allows you to expand your worldview, basically, and to be able to be more open to other way of seeing things. So that was another proposition, whether we wanted to try that out, but if there's already an agenda, that's fine. Something that we can look at in the future sessions, whether it's here at outer space or the inner space. So the questions are, I've put the link there. Why is the document needed now? So we had an assumption that the reason was all around about conflict resolution, about conflict. So we're thinking, well, how does that fit? What's the delineation between the comms and the exploration group, the conflict resolution? Because if the reason for the manifestation of this document was to address a recent conflict or tension that had to make someone leave Discord, then we need to have clarity. Who is it for? What is its purpose? Although we kind of know, but we just don't want to make assumptions, to have really great clarity. And how would this document be impactful? To who gets to decide what impactful means? How would we know? How can the Comstock be really alive and applied and experimented, and as well as fun? Because we felt there's a lack of joy and fun in our conversations in the ecosystem. And based on all of those answers, who are the actual people that need to write this document? Is it really us? And then also timeline in terms of deliverable. We want to commit to the deliverable because we all committed to, but what's the date? What's the rush, if there is a rush? Who's deciding this due date? And what happens to the team beyond the comms team? So Tina and Melanie, have I summarized all the questions that we all did with Ogden? And also, please feel free to contribute. Melanie, we can't hear you.
No? Good. So it was the headset. Perfectly, like always, Mila. One thing where we were not coming back to what we have heard, Anna added another reason besides the conflict resolution one, and none of us remembered it. So Anna, up to you which one that was.
Right. Okay. Yes. Thank you for that, Melanie, because that was the first thing I was going to talk about. But I do have a couple of potential answers, but also potential questions for you regarding these questions.
Do you see hands today, Anna? Because Apostle is raising the hand.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I don't. Okay, Apostle, go first, and then I'll answer. Oh, no hand anymore.
No, I prefer you answer, Anna, and then I'll chime in as well.
Okay. All right. So indeed, let's start with the purpose of the document. I do feel like I have been asked this a couple of times now, and every single time I do not, I, I was going to say I do not agree that the purpose is the one that is stated, but that's just my opinion. My personal motivation for picking up this comms document that I did not start was completely different, is not attached to conflict resolution whatsoever. I mean, in a way, we could say that everything in life could be attached to conflict resolution, but it isn't. For me, at least, the motivation for me was literally when you arrive in SEEDs and you arrive, either it is through the Telegram or the Telegram group or Discord, or you're checking up a YouTube channel. If you want to know what are the guidelines for this community, where do you go? How do you know that? Unless you spend 5 weeks being a part of every single call and understanding and looking at the dynamics between people and understanding how do they talk to each other. And then like in those 5 weeks, you spend time looking at Discord and seeing, oh, these are comments that are answered to. So, okay, that's because probably people like talking and communicating in this way. These are frowned upon. Oh, interesting. Why? I don't know. What is it? And it takes time actually to get used to the communication patterns in SEEDs, which is normal. Every single community or network or whatever has different communication patterns. And my personal motivation for putting this comms doc together was for that reason, was kind of to make people's lives easier and make things explicit, because I do like when things are explicit. And right now in SEEDs, there's a lot of implicit stuff going on. And to me, it was just making this explicit. So that's for the purpose for me. But yeah, again, this is my personal motivation. So if you guys have a different motivation to putting this comms doc together, go for it. I'm not going to say that it's bad, it's wrong, or anything. It's just a different perspective. Awesome.
Anna, can I just build on what you're sharing? So how is this different to the SEEDs, the 500 pages SEED guide document? Is it just making it more simpler and more succinct, like 1 page or something like that?
From what?
How is it different to the SEEDs guide document, this comms document? Because there's a whole SEEDs guide, constitution guide. Is it just to make it more succinct and simpler, as you said, ease? Is it like a 1-2 page document that we're wanting to deliver?
No. I mean, yes, 1-2 page documents. Actually, yes to this comms patterns, not even being a document. I would be very pleased if it could be like a simple image, an infographic, something incredibly easy and accessible. But there is nothing in the SEEDs guide nor the Constitution that talks about how we communicate in the SEEDs community. So that has never been created. So that's the proposition here, and that kind of answers a couple of the questions of who are the actual people that need to write this document? Us. Anyone, literally anyone in the SEEDs community could write this document and make it as a proposal to the SEEDs community. And then we will decide, the SEEDs community can decide that if we want to follow those guidelines or not. And in Renaissance Explorer specifically, this is a little experiment, a little bubble, a little hub, where we're deciding that we're going to try this out in this little hub. And as soon as this document or this comms pattern is done, and you decide where it's leading this now, but let's say it's you, Mila, you decide that it's check, it's done, we're happy with it. Then we go to the outer space. And in the beginning of the outer space, we have that moment for proposals. And then we see if anyone has an objection to actually putting that into place and applying those communication guidelines. And if no objections, that's it. Renaissance Explorer starts applying that, and we can test drive it to see if it can become something that is interesting for the SEEDs community as a whole. So that kind of answers the question of, yeah, who? Literally us. And I kind of want to answer the question, like, how are we not working with MBC comms? Well, it's just, we can totally, if anyone wants to invite someone from MBC comms to give their opinions, to share their opinions, you can. But, oh, okay, I see Michael. No? Okay. But there's no necessity for that. Literally any citizen can come up with any proposal, and especially here in RE and inside of an exploration group, that is the very purpose of it. So we don't need authorization. We don't need like to ask for permission from anyone. I'm trying to convey that idea, like feel empowered to come up with the best communication patterns and guidelines that you could imagine that will be of service to the SEEDS ecosystem, and go for it. Michael.
Thank you. Just my perspective on this. It's almost a cultural doc, in my view, this comms document. If we're talking about a renaissance, then this is an entirely new way of experiencing the world, which means new belief systems, new ways of engaging with each other, new ways of stepping up. And we're probably one of the few best to describe our experiences so far, which is our experience of the new culture. So it's not so much about, which channels we use to communicate and all the rest. It's more a very fluid document because we don't know. This is emerging as we're experiencing it. Just my perspective. I don't know if that helps. Thanks.
I would share that was actually in our conversation, someone we talked about, because the team is also in the conflict resolution, and because the comms in the conflict is really symptoms, and it's really about reflection of how we actually work together. And that is culture. We're co-creating culture. I think Apostle Anna has raised his hand.
Thank you. Go, Apostle.
So about this comms thing, I'm actually, maybe, I don't know if I have time, but if I'll have time, I'll join the conversation. First version can actually describe how do you navigate Discord, how do you navigate discourse, what do you do in Discord, what do you do in discourse, how does this, what do we do in Zoom, right? Like just making that implicit information explicit in a sense. And also, for example, what are the different cultural places, cultural events that are part of Haifa, that are part of Samara, that are part of Renaissance Explorers, because they're different, like the types of events that we have are different in the different organizations. So a person can actually like read it like for an hour or two, and as Anna said, like orient themselves. Where do they want to go to like explore this part of the ecosystem and that part of the ecosystem? Like what is the best place? So that's one thing. Then the second version could be like how the DHOs themselves communicate between them, how the subcircles communicate between them, how do we create value flows that are healthy, information flows that were healthy and that like create collaboration and creativity instead of dissonance and conflict, right? And what kind of community events, SEEDS community events can we have? Like that chimes in a little bit on our conversations with Tyler. Mila, you're maybe partly part of it, about the events that we create, the festivals that we create that are part of like sharing what are we doing here, right? Like what the different parts of SEEDS are doing. So that is probably level 2 of the comms doc. of the comms process, and the doc is just documenting the process, right? It's just like the process is more important than the document in a sense. So that's about the comms doc that I wanted to explain. The other thing is about the minimal viable structure that we set up. I want to make this explicit. That is not a minimal viable structure for the exploration groups. That is the minimal viable structure for Renaissance explorers. And the exploration groups process, right now there is one process for like starting and like working in an exploration group. But I think that we can improve on that and upgrade it as a result of the actual exploration groups working. So we can see what do they need. Maybe I will think about that more deeply. Like, what does the exploration group need? How do they organize? How do they communicate? Like, how do they make progress? Like, who's responsible about making progress? And all that stuff that right now, again, is a little bit implicit. Maybe a little bit is written, a little bit is implicit. I'm thinking how to actually organize it. And right now, if you're like wondering how do we remunerate ourselves, for example, for exploration group work, there is the proposal 111 up and running in that channel in Discord. So you can basically write what you have done in that channel and ask for whatever remuneration you need for your work in the exploration group. And at some point when we're ready, we can have like more, a better answer to that, basically. Does this make sense? I'm asking specifically for Mila.
You muted.
Mila, we can't hear you.
Okay. Yes, and I've typed it up, Tina and Melanie. If I've missed something, please check. I put it in our questions for comms exploration group. Thank you, Anna and Apostle. I'm just trying to find in the Discord where you said we need to, where we can submit if we want, when we want, if and when we want to ask for remuneration for the work.
Yeah, the channel is called re/quests/111. And you have to be part of @Renaissance Explorers group in Discord. Like, you have to get the notifications when someone texts Renaissance Explorers in order to see that channel. And if you're not, please contact me, DM me, and I will add you to it.
Yeah,
I'll add you to the group.
I've been having problems. Anna knows this. I don't get the newsletter. I didn't get the invite. So that's the reason why I'm not officially part of the RE, because it's been since the beginning when I joined, been having those issues. And that's why I didn't join the first couple of weeks, because I wasn't really aware what was happening. I think the only last question, all the other questions, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Melanie and Tina, the only last question is, when do you need this by, this comms doc? So we have a view of when we need to deliver it.
I'll hand it over to Melanie, and then I'll answer your question, Mila.
Thank you.
Okay, two things. First of all, Apostle, I would need a bit of help. Again, I guess I have missed some things, but the 111 proposals, weren't they for art and not for contributing to just work? And then what is the difference from what Anna just described as the new minimal viable structure of Renaissance Explorer? So I might have missed something. And secondly, thank you for explaining that part for the process manual you are speaking about, which is a bit different from a comms document in my point of view. And I would like to bring back this thought of Michael that we need something about culture. I don't think we can put culture in a document, but we mustn't forget that these parts are also needed. What I heard from Apostel sounds for me a bit more like a process manual or starter kit, which is needed, but it's a bit of a different story.
Okay, so I'm gonna answer Mila real quick and see if Apostle can answer Melanie. If he can't and he needs to exit, I see it in the chat. I'll answer you, Melanie. So Mila, regarding the dates, I think I will answer saying that in an exploration group, you have full autonomy, and that's what we're trying to create here as an environment. It's you being completely free to do the exploration however you want it, with whoever you want it.
Did she froze for you as well? Okay. I'm on my office computer, so I don't have video.
Yeah,
Oh,
back. Anna's back. You
Back.
first.
Okay.
okay.
So freedom.
Yes, you're completely free to do whatever you want. There are just a couple of guidelines as to create a forum post so that everyone knows that exploration group exists. Post in bullet points what it's about. Post it in the doc that it's an active exploration group. But apart from that, you don't have to have meetings through Zoom. You can collaborate async. You can have a private chat. You can do whatever you want. So I will answer to you regarding the date. You decide. You tell me, actually, when is that going to be out? And I will tell you, okay, awesome, beautiful. So, Apostle, can I let you answer Melanie, or do you want me to answer regarding request 111?
So yeah, the idea about request 111 is that you don't get remunerated with for the same tasks twice. Like if you create an art and you get like the award from the art piece part, like you submit the art and you get 500 on 1,000 seats, you don't get another like another contribution from 111 for the same work. Basically, that's the point. Otherwise, the 111 is completely free. You can submit whatever you want. You can submit even things that aren't directly contributing to the Renaissance Explorers. You can submit. It's designed to be super free, basically, and to be able to experiment with. And the only restriction is that if one person decides that you should not receive this contribution, they can downvote it with one downvote, and you need 3 people to upvote it, basically, in order to pass. So that's the restriction. It's kind of like we are letting the collective conscience and collective intelligence of the Renaissance explorers to guide the process. Does that answer your question, Melanie?
My question was that if it's only for art, which was my last view I had on that, and that you answered perfectly, but again, a bit longer than I expected.
Yeah, the
all good,
art.
all good.
Yeah, the art and the proposal 111 are 2 different activities, and the basic income is a third one. So there's lots of ways to collaborate.
So Apostle, the guideline to submit, is that something that you could just because I missed that. Would you just kind of send on the re-storytelling what the
I
guide
will, yeah, I will. I think I have it as a forum post.
Oh, okay, great. That's even better.
It's here.
Thank you. I'll
Yeah.
put it in our documents. The only one question about this, it's almost like a starter kit that what Melanie is saying, this Comstock. There is already a proposal that Neil is doing, and their group from the Ambassador Journey was already looking into that, making the onboarding much easier, because we all went through that. And so rather than making redundant, like work that is somewhere else, and instead of, is that okay to collaborate outside of the, I don't know if he's part of the Renaissance Explorer. Is the exploration group only for RE, or is it beyond RE? Anyone outside of RE can join.
Take the freedom to decide on your own.
Okay.
Sorry but to hijack, but if we collaborate, then we shouldn't reduce it to us.
Okay, great.
Wait, what was your answer, Melanie?
If there is someone working on the same document, it wouldn't be very wise not to collaborate, even though it would be for something else. So I guess the point will be that the remuneration you put so much focus on might not be for those who are not part of the Renaissance Explorers.
That is also in the document, How to Start an Exploration Group. It says clearly that anyone can be part of an exploration group. However, it needs to be guided, led, or whatever by a Renaissance explorer. But that's it.
Yeah, because I know Neil is exactly doing what this started, kind of slightly different, because it's not just on comms, but it is on onboarding process to make it easy.
Neil will probably maybe be part of Renaissance Explorers as a I don't know, a bending of the rules kind of thing, let's say. That may happen. An exception may be made.
Okay.
But we haven't talked in depth yet about it. Okay. Oh, Apostle, you have your hands up?
Yeah, wanted to talk a little bit, like, if the exploration groups decides that at one point, like, they do want to meetings and they decide that this is meaningless, and this question that they gathered upon right now is there's no point in continuing in it. They just like decide right in the forum that this we don't find that meaningful because X, Y, and Z, and the exploration group is closed, and we continue with more productive and important stuff to do, right?
Okie dokie. So now that we have, I feel like sometimes this space is the space for answering questions and clarifying things that are not very explicit in other Renaissance Explorer space, which is good. It's great because we also need that. So now I would like to focus on our exploration mode and do a round of everyone speaking, and that's where you could potentially cheat and also do kind of a check-in if you want. But the exploration round here would be what is the story that we tell of seeds, and how does the minimum viable map change that story or support that story that we as individuals were telling or have been telling of seeds? So yesterday in the outer space, we had that kind of different session where we went into the minimum viable map, and that raised a lot of questions for people, and that sparked a lot of discussions and conversations. And so I figured that today in the storytelling space, we could pick up that thread and share first in an exploration round where everybody shares once in turns, what the story that we tell of seeds is, or the one we have been telling, and did that seeing that map, did it change it for us, or is it like supporting to the story that we had been telling? And then we'll go into breakout rooms and talk about how do we actually create engaging stories around that minimum viable map or not, according to how you're going to answer to the first question here. So let's do this first round with what is the story that you have been telling of seeds, and how does that map change or support that story? Who wants to go first?
I'll jump in if I may. Millet, did you want to?
No.
No. Cool. So I love the question, Anna, because I think as a group, we should be challenging ourselves to ask what we are doing in our communities to make the story of seeds live. Because it sometimes feels to me as if we're too theoretical, too academic, too conceptual. And so to accept my own challenge, that's what I've started doing here in South Africa, and using the story of seeds as an enabler for political change that the country seems to feel ready to step into. And so the way I've been positioning it here is that we South Africans need to identify themselves as people who are ready for cultural change by adding themselves to a map. Now that map will ultimately become a directory where people can list services that will be paid in seeds. But it's a question of cart before the horse, and which comes first, as we've seen in other places in the seeds ecosystem. Do you offer seeds as a payment first and then worry about a marketplace appearing? So longer term, I know that seeds is going to be a very core part of the story that we're telling. But at this stage, going right back to basics and just saying, I want to put my hand up and I want to be identified by others who are also interested in some kind of society level change. That's your very first basic step in the process that we're doing here. So that's personal to me, but everybody else will have a different community, a different angle of approach. And so maybe we should be reporting back to each other. What practically have we done this week in our communities as far as the seed story is concerned? Thanks.
The floor is open, and you can just pass it on to someone else, Michael, if you want. That way it goes faster.
Oh, I think Tina's been very quiet and I'm worried about her. She may have lost her voice.
Oh my goodness. I'm excited for the structure. It's cool, but I don't know why I'm quiet. I don't know that I have a lot to offer, but thank you, Michael.
So Tina, do you want to participate in our round where everybody shares what the story of seeds is for you, and how does that map change it or supported that?
I was actually going to ask if there could be a link to it, because I'm like madly trying to figure out how to
Yeah, I've got it.
reflect my own process, like, or see it reflected somehow. Okay, so I think the thing that I come back to again and again when I'm thinking about going out, even within alliances and talking to specific people, is just making sure that the experience that they're having or the communication that's happening is coming from within their own self-discovery. And so for me, a lot of onboarding is going to necessitate like experience, not just reading, and maybe even allowing for a space to arrive at a different level of agreements, because sometimes when people come into the space, it's just by nature disruptive, because we're so used to things being disruptive in our normal or in our old lives, old world. So that's it. But I think that can be worked into any kind of a map as just respecting that play space, or that space that could be open for games, for instance. Like, I spent 2 weeks creating a game, and I'm passionate about the game aspect of things and the play aspect of things. And so I'm just going to want to make sure that those things get preserved in any map.
Do you want to pass it to the next person, Tina?
Is it Arian or Arian?
As you like. I'm from Germany, so Arian, actually.
Okay.
But I also like it if it flows into the normal English pronunciation, so I don't care. For me, yesterday was quite enlightening. And my stories so far about seeds really have been that I'm still exploring. So I never said like, this is seeds, but I'm also on my way to find out. And for me, it answered some open questions that I had. And it's really tied into a discussion I had with a friend, that it seems seeds in Haifa, they have achieved so far, but still they are at the very, very beginning. And yeah, Raki said that we are still crawling and learning to walk. And some open questions I have is that if he said like that it's more about making it known, and that also is very relevant to the proposal that Raki had that didn't get through, about like stopping the co-op proposals trying to get an income with seeds, and that there's a slight tendency of it getting paid off to fiat. And at the moment, it's still an asset, and that it will not be a currency until go live. And yeah, this explains a lot. It's nothing that it had not already been said, but it makes it clear for me. I'm questioning if there still needs to be, before go live, some kind of, and this is exactly what Michael said, some kind of establishing infrastructure, and establishing, even if it's not like an actual market, but it's just like for a circular economy, you have to have people of all kinds, fields of expertise in your surroundings. And I think this is really the story that I've been telling before Seeds, that it's really about local mindset, like becoming, creating local communities and circular economies. And something I found interesting, I haven't thought through, but if it's a circular economy, it doesn't even matter what is the fiat value of seeds. So I don't even see a big danger. Of course, it's very theoretically, but if everything I pay, I get back in seeds, and I can buy everything I need for seeds, the real fiat value doesn't even matter anymore. Yeah, but that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah, and my story really is the same story I've been telling before Seeds, and it's about creating local communities and self-sovereign communities. And I pass it on to Apostle.
I'm kind of having a lunch, the most delicious sandwiches in the city. I want to correct you. If there are circular economies, we still need to transact with the fiat world, in a sense. So
yes, you're right. It's
example,
very theoretical.
Yeah, when you have a community which is circular, that is great. Most of the value is transferred inside the community. But then if someone wants to go and buy water pump, there usually is a community fund, like a liquidity fund for the community. So they just go and exchange the seeds in that liquidity fund. And the liquidity fund can have, it's not that point, right?
If I may, let's try not to correct anyone, but offer a new perspective. And if you could please stay with the
I just
question.
want to explain what's the structure there. Yeah, the liquidity fund can be actually like with better rate than the official price on the exchanges. That was my point. Anyway, hope this is useful. I didn't want to correct. I just wanted to expand on the perspective. What was the prompt again? Sorry.
Yeah, so it was, what's the story of seeds that you've been selling, and how has the minimum viable map changed that story for you, or is supporting that story for you? The one that
Awesome. Yeah, amazing question. It's actually making it explicit. When I wanted to tell of one like close friend, like a couple of months ago, what is Seeds about, I said it's a cryptocurrency that is regenerating the world, but it's just in infancy, and it's going to like start expanding in 2 years. So it's kind of like perfectly fitting what that document is saying. Yeah. And I'm kind of like anxious of inviting my friends still. I kind of want to see a little bit maturity until I start like inviting a lot of people, right? Or maybe I'm probably inviting only crypto people at this point. That's my strategy. Okay, Max.
Damn, I hope you forgot me. I actually, when I tell of seeds, then it's more or less just saying it tries to be complex, but is still very complicated. And what I personally see as the real purpose of seeds is to be a space to bring about what you as an individual want to see in the world. Yeah, because I could see from the beginning that there are many different people in here that have many different visions and hopes. And they're all beautiful, and kind of the hope is there that Seeds empowers them to bring that into reality. And so for me, this is kind of the underlying purpose of Seeds. And I feel that the roadmap kind of limits that in its expression. It probably won't stop it because I feel that the power is just too strong there. And it provides kind of like a rope to hold on to not fall into that complexity that right now is there and seems too complicated, which I think is very good. But I also see that right now it's framed in a way that's very limiting, very much focused on money, like on how do we deal with seeds and the money aspect, not so much on the how do we create together and how do we work together, what is the stages that we are in, how do they look like, how do they feel like, and so it misses also kind of that playfulness really inside, that it makes clear that we are playing, and that yeah, it is an experiment. It says so in words, like in a few points, but it doesn't feel like it. And I hope that is still coming. So in a way, for me, it wouldn't change how I frame seeds. And I just see that it does not represent seeds really from the human perspective. Yeah, I think that's all. Thank you very much. Anna, you haven't said anything about that.
Tricky. Yes, I try to let others express themselves. But I can answer to my own prompt. What's the story that I tell of seeds? To be perfectly honest, I don't. I am not the kind of person who is very, I'm not a very good ambassador, even though I am an ambassador. I went to the Ambassador Academy, but I'm not that person who goes around talking to people about what I know or what I'm doing, or tries to onboard people. I don't know how to do that. I don't like doing that, so I just don't do that. I always feel like I'm trying to convince people of something, and I don't want to convince anyone of anything. I was called to Seeds through complete coincidence and randomness. And I figure like anyone who is supposed to be here right now is going to be here in some form or another. And there are beautiful people out there who are really good at talking to people and convincing people. And it's awesome. And I love that you all exist. It's not me though. So I usually don't tell the story of Seeds unless I'm talking to very close friends with whom I go really in depth, and I tell everything that I know of it, which is a lot. So those conversations tend to get very long and potentially annoying for people, but also inspiring, because Seeds is quite inspiring. And how does the minimum viable map change that? It didn't actually. The vision that I had for Seeds moving forward is pretty much aligned with that map that I saw this week. So yeah, it's a new supportive document for me, which I would very much like, and it's what I'm going to propose in a couple of minutes, that we make it into something other than a document in our breakout rooms. That's what I want us to go talk about and focus on. But yeah, at the moment, it's very much supportive. It didn't change at all the Seeds vision that I had. It's absolutely a match to the vision that I had in my own head without having checked with anyone. And when I saw that map, I was like, awesome. That's also how I feel. Perfection. On board. Still on board, still aligned. So passing on to Melanie.
Easy question first about the minimal viable map document. It came to at the perfect moment, because it makes explicit what some people feel and think. So it helps again to discuss things, and it's like always only one part of the truths we have out there, and there are many others. And as soon as something is explicit, we can start position ourselves in different ways with regard to that, what we hear and see. Therefore, it was perfect timing. And then I answer the first part, which is, what story do I tell about Seeds? And thank you, Michael. You said, what did you do in the last 7 days and not last 24 hours, as far as I remember? So I can speak about 4 different ways. I speak about Seeds, which is a bit different to others, because I'm in part of the financial industry. So anyway, this is a part of the potential solution. So the red thread for me always is to speak about a potential future piece of puzzle for solving the problems of the present, which is in line with how the document describes it, like the crawling peat. It can be a part, but it might be that this specific experiment will end at some point in time. And like what I now understood from blockchain law, there are forks. There might be a fork that goes into another direction, which then will go somewhere else. And being a bit more concrete, I use my experiences within SEEDS for painting a picture of the future. Very concrete, I had a discussion with someone working in the regenerative tourism field. So they are currently speaking about hotels within the mountains where no one goes anymore. So this could be a potential future solution for co-habs with co-working and co-living and local communities. So what I do is seeding ideas. Another one I seeded was with someone from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation related to Arian circular economy, where I said, what would be if? And then I can show little pieces from the ideas and experiments we are working on, with this little caveat that this is just one potential future we might create, and that these people also can take the idea. And I also took the freedom to contact Brett Scott, who I know, who is working on the future of money and who was a long time ago in banking, and just wrote an article about blockchain and Bitcoin and why it's not so good. And I said, so please look into SEEDS and tell me what you think. So I also take it as something where I ask people, what do you feel is good about this and what could we change? And as far as I understood, he will now do a deep dive and might come up with an article about it. Even though if the article is not good for what we feel SEEDS might be, it helps us learning. And for me, this is a learning and experiment story. So, one last thing, I had 24 hours in the monastery from Monday to Tuesday. I already spoke about that, and we were speaking about the future of education. And of course, the idea of SEEDS can also be in there if you change the paradigm of paying the professors, and then in the future, you pay the students for be there. So these kind of ideas, I use that for. That was my last week real story SEEDS.
Beautiful.
And as I haven't been there, I guess everyone now has answered this question. Handing back to Anna. Or Mila, good. Then I hand over to Mila.
Thank you, Melanie. Yes, so the story that I tell about SEEDS is dependent on the person that I'm talking to or the group. So meeting people where they're at. And that's something that I understand about storytelling and actually marketing. So the story that I tell depends on that. And like Melanie is talking about the what if, knowing what their vision are. And partly it's because I'm the embodiment of that vision, because it is so aligned. What SEEDS is doing and all of the other communities that I'm doing, I don't do anything else. I don't go for shiny objects. I'm fundamentally, it's in my whole cell and being. So sometimes what I notice, it gets transmitted. And things that I would say is exactly what I've read. It's co-creating a thriving civilization that flourishes in a regenerative way, in a decentralized way. Experimentation is the key here. And I've been in beta testing of platforms for decades. So I'm very comfortable with the uncertainty. So I manage the expectations. And I've onboarded in the last 2 weeks about now 9. We're still going about another 10. And we know some people who are in Eco Village in Damanhur right now of our cohort, who's going to bring about 60. And then we're still kind of trying to understand how we're going to bring the gen. If we bring the whole gen, that's 100,000 people. So I'm trying to understand really and I've asked this to Rain, I've talked to various people, do we bring a DHO, because I'm still trying to understand bounty quests, and now the proposal is, there's a lot of people, I'm in so many different communities, in eco-villages, complex systems, practitioners, actual regenerative practitioners who's been doing this for 50 years. They're not some theoretical people. Indigenous peoples who's not very much represented here. And I'm very glad that developing countries have tried to understand how it's done in local bioregions like Guatemala without any, who doesn't have internet. So I'm really curious about that. So the people that has signed up, none of them are crypto, just one or two people. All of them are from all over the world, one from Bahrain, one from Venezuela, the other one from, I don't know, so many different countries. And all the other 60 are all from all over the world. The ones that has been in my cohort for the Gen Eco Village design. So we've already been trained to look at social and cultural transformation first and foremost, before the ecology, before the technology, before the permaculture. And the last part is integrated system design, whole worldview design, not just from one perspective. So what I brought in to talk to them was saying, look, this is something that is a beta testing, it's infancy, it's crawling, it's exploration, it's going to be overwhelming. You have to learn proactively by doing and engaging with the community, learn. And so that's what they've done the last 2 weeks. I gave them a whole page document of all the links of Haifa, Samara, everything that I could find. And I said, just go and pick something and go in and talk to people and, watch videos, anything, and then ask me questions. So we've been meeting regularly. So I've had a lot of hand-holding that I have to do myself, because somebody is going to, but how do I do this? How do I do that? So that's been tiring. So this onboarding kit would be wonderful to have, because if we're going to have 60, I told the rest of the group, we're going for collective leadership. Each one of you have to learn even before going to the ambassador journey, and you be the unofficial ambassador, and just don't count on me, because 60 people are not going to be able to be available, especially if we're going to the whole Gen leadership, because I have access to the Gen leadership. So that's what I'm actually onboarding people and experimenting together, both from IT people and people like in the middle of Guatemala in a lake somewhere, is completely a regenerative person, farmer. So I have multiple access, and the story that we talk about is very different. And the discussions we have are very different, because their interest is sometimes local, their interest is sometimes global. I've started talking to the British Isle people, and we're starting to get that up and running. There's 3 people that we talked. We've got now 5 people talking to each other, and we're going to meet again on the 20th of December. So there are things that I'm doing in separate pieces. That's how I do. I work in constellations and seeing how this is all going. And I don't plan it. It's the next step, because this is all emergent, and getting too attached to, I don't know what it is, this whole thing of comfort zone. And really what I'm trying to prepare for everyone who's coming on board through me is the discomfort. And in that discomfort, that's where the creativity and the paradigm shift is going to happen, and co-created together, not by one person. And I have made a very simple awareness that everything is going to change almost daily. So don't get attached to some of the documentation I gave, and ask them to also input to bring, and I'm meeting them again tomorrow. So that's the kind of stories and conversations that I have. I don't know how this fits in the MV map. I'm still trying to understand what the MV map, and I do agree with Apostle that with the whole exchange of fiat and seed, we have one foot in the old system. We're not in the new system. And some of these people in the local bioregions, including ourselves, need to survive. I think volunteering is part of the slave mentality, colonialism mentality. Volunteering is okay, but we have to also appreciate these people are giving value, and they have to live in this old system. They have to eat, they have to live. You cannot serve. It's like, if an airplane is going to crash, you're the first, you have to, even for your children, you have to put the oxygen first on yourself. So we cannot just like, okay, rely like the NGOs, lots of volunteers, and not attend even XR. I'm working with XR to look at regenerative culture with their leadership. And they supply people on the ground when they're demonstrating with food, with everything, because you just can't expect people to just, especially people who don't have, especially in developing countries. So this whole idea, let's campaign and invite, who is it serving? Is it serving just the seeds ecosystem, or are we serving the whole civilization? Because we're talking about co-creating a civilization, and we need to be mindful of worldviews from all perspectives, not just ours. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you, Mila. Thank you, everyone, for your answers. We don't have a lot of time left, but I would still like us to go into breakout rooms, answering the question around the MV map.
Anna?
Yes.
May I ask for an additional round where everyone just in 1 or 2 words or sentences says how they feel now after they have heard all these different stories?
Sure.
And I would love to do that in the whole group and not in small groups, because so much resonates with what Max said, that it's about humans, and what Mila said, and the human part needs to be in there. And I just feel even more convinced than yesterday that we are currently in a perfect timing, and that the document, regardless of what it will be in the future, if it will be a infograph or something else, has already done its work. And I would like to hear if others have kind of thoughts by listening to all the other stories.
I'd like to, if I may. I've been, prior to this little session that we just had now, I've been so concerned that all of the activity I seem to experience in the seeds ecosystem is about people putting proposals forward for regenerative projects. And it just seems to me to be wrong. And the stories we've just heard now have given me hugely renewed hope that there are, in fact, some of us going around telling stories that have nothing to do with a regenerative project. So it was very encouraging to hear those stories. So thank you. I mean, Melanie, yours, to the fact that you're telling these stories in a banking environment is just mind-blowing. It is beautiful to hear that those conversations are happening, because we tend to see bankers as those evil people, and that's not true at all. There's many people that are looking for alternative ways of doing things. So it was just beautiful to hear confirmation that those conversations are happening. So thank you, Anna, for kicking that off, and for everyone for participating. Very useful to me. And I agree that the map has already done its job. It has refocused that we're at the early stage, and that's all we need to know from now. I don't think we need to plan out the whole map all the way to the point where we can fly, because that will develop as we go along. All we need to focus on today is that we're in the crawl phase. The other stuff doesn't matter. It might to Reiki, but I don't think it matters to us. My views.
Thank you, Michael. I enjoyed that. Yeah, I very much see the same thing there, that it's kind of, it brought that a little bit more clarity for people in there, but also like going further than just what is happening right now is would limit us. That was the limitation that I saw in how we can evolve and how we can express ourselves, and who feels called to this space when they read this. And for me, that was like, okay, it doesn't really represent the people who are in there. And so hearing, especially all of you here, but also knowing of many others, that there's just this diversity in the space, which is so beautiful. I mean, and actually that's the best symbol of how close we are to nature, because we accept this diversity that is needed. And this doesn't come across yet, but I'm very hopeful that we bring it in there. So thank you all for sharing that. Yeah.
You're muted, Tina.
I just want to voice this because I haven't had a chance to really see if it's present in the map yet, but there's certain sort of like little points from yesterday and through my experience as a self-proclaimed pilot, like weird, like okay, so like I'm literally everything I'm doing is trying to put seeds into motion, right? I'm having an event tomorrow where people are going to come over. We're going to do a pop-up market. I tried to get into a facilitator training with my permaculture teacher through Changemakers organization. I'm in process of aligning with them, but it's through putting it into practice. Like I'm like, look, I have $37,000 in seeds. I have $200 in fiat. Can I pay you with seeds? And can we set you up as an alliance to accept payment so that I can practice circular economy? And he didn't get back to me. And I know I'm going to have to follow up that call. And I had to make a decision that I could not afford his course simply because he was offering it in fiat. And I said, look, you have a decision. You can not take seats, and I don't get to practice circular economy. But if I can't do that, then your facilitation practice isn't valuable to me right now. And it's interesting because just to hear what Mila's talking about and Melanie and how the process of onboarding is sort of reflective of our ecosystems that we're a part of, right? So it's not this process of like selection, because I got, the pilot selection process is daunting, horrifying, doesn't work, didn't listen, was non-responsive, created a lot of conflict, ostracized because I didn't fit the mold. I wasn't being listened to, and yet it didn't stop me from being a fucking pilot. Sorry to bring the F word in, but it's like, I feel like that's how devoted I am to this new world, not just seeds, but seeds fits the new world for me. So it's a pattern that I will repeat and repeat and repeat. And because I'm not venture capital supported now, I happen to be in an environment where I will not survive it unless the fucking world changes. So it's an interesting tension, and it's one that I'm navigating sometimes with humor and sometimes with like a great deal of self-doubt. And the point I'm trying to make here is that I think part of this map has to include a vehicle by which these stories can be told and that we can glean a lot of value from. Because I didn't feel like when I went through the process and sort of like was a pre-pilot, not even the name pilot on it, but definitely some mechanisms there that are now in place that have to do with having venture capital in one ear and okay to go forward within the other actionable thing. Like there's a caution, something cautions me, like, can we softly align ourselves with VC, or at least allow some template by which the VC doesn't define the direction that we go in. That's all.
Tina, it would be beautiful if at some stage you wouldn't mind sharing, even from a previous call, you were talking about the message that I'm not sure if it's your children or a story that you told and they were able to tell it back. It would be beautiful to hear that, if it's right for you at some point.
Can I share more?
If you can do it in 2 minutes, because I will leave at 2:30.
Okay.
If you can't do it in 2 minutes, I have to watch the recording later on.
Okay. Let's see if I can do it real quick. I just wanted to read the letter. I want to read a letter. Can I read a letter to you? I might not be able to get to it. Anyway, I'll just publish it. I'll publish it. Also, I'm playing the game on Sunday that I made. Can I post it in Discourse as an entire, like the game with the open document and then this telling of the story of the game this Sunday that's buyable? Okay, okay, cool. I wrote a letter to Seeds from Lala Gardens, and it's amazing. Like, it made me, what it did, it was a declarative letter. I declared myself aligned with the Seeds ecosystem and alive within the Seeds ecosystem. Like, I didn't wait for permission to do that, and that was a process of discovery for me. Like, I keep wanting to ask for permission to be viable, and I had to literally declare it. And I think that declarative action is, for me, on a personal level, was transformative. It changed my entire being within this ecosystem. I stopped coming in defensively. And that kind of healing process, I think, has to be protected for people, because, you know, I am a regenerator. I've been for a decade and I'm still in a healing process. So I just wanted to say thank you. I don't know if that's important.
I just want to second that from my side. The stepping up here in South Africa, doing what I'm doing now, which is very much in a political space, which I would never, ever, ever have dreamed of before. I didn't come to the Seeds ecosystem and ask for permission. I didn't question, can Seeds support what we think we're going to do here? Just the stepping up and doing it. And it's scary as shit. But once you do it, all kinds of things open up. And so I just want to second what you just said to me. Beautiful.
Thank you, my friends. Melanie, I don't know if that round went the way you were expecting it to go, but since it's 2:30 now, I'm going to propose that we do a quick checkout and that we talk to each other async in the myriad of forums and threads and messagings that we have. My checkout for today is that I'm leaving here very, very nourished by all of the answers to that prompt. I'm happy that I got to make the announcements on the new structure. If anyone has any kind of doubt regarding that structure, please contact me, and I will make I'm making the commitment right now to go over all of those private messages and actually answer them. I have been in this incredible turmoil in my life right now. I'm moving countries, so there's a lot going on, but I will answer every question on the MV structure. So feel free to contact me privately. And yes, very nourished by all of those answers to the story that you all tell of seeds, and how does that minimum viable map changed it or it didn't. Yeah, living here very happy. Thank you very much. Passing it to Mila.
I think just one word, abundance. I'll pass it on to Melanie.
I feel we just created a piece of art that might be important for the future of seeds. So I will think about if I ask for this 1-1-1 thing or not for that 1.5 hour. Thank you all. My question was somehow answered because I really felt we did something important for the system today, or for us, which might be the same. Thank you, Anna, for being open to the change, not having your small groups, but we were not so many people. Handing over to Arjan.
I feel grateful and yeah, excited for the Codex meeting on Friday. And I pass it on to Michael.
Can't say why or how, but I think the last 20 to 30 minutes has for me been the most meaningful seed call I've ever been on. There's something that has just birthed here that I think we'll only realize the full impact of it in a few weeks or some time from now. I really feel as if this was profound. So thank you for seeing that, Anna. And again, thanks for the contributions from everyone. I think everyone has gone. Anyone else still need to check out?
It's funny, I keep getting missed in checkouts, and that's hilarious, and I don't know why. It's like, okay, that's fine. I'm just going to say embodied, because I've been really just desperately wanting to be visible and embodied. And so here I am at the closing, embodied.
Thank you, everyone. You can unmute yourselves if you want, and see you all async and on Friday and next week and forever.
Anna, where are you moving to?
Ooh, that's a whole other topic of conversation. Maybe we'll talk about it. There's no straight answer.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Beijo.